And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids, you guys. I'm your host, Matthew Orton. Thank you for coming and tuning in. I appreciate it. Keep those 5-star reviews coming, you guys. Keep liking and subscribing us. The only way we're going to get out there is if you guys keep sharing us, all right? We want to hear your encounters. You can email us, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Follow us on all your social media platforms. We do have a Patreon set up that does help support the show. Coming soon, we're going to have a Buy Me a Coffee set up, too. If you just want to make a small-time donation, it's greatly appreciated. We do have t-shirts available for sale. Check us out. Send some messages if you're into one. We have 3 versions of it. One has a logo on it. One says Bigfoot drinks better beer than you. And we have one for breast cancer awareness, which is hitting pretty close to home for some of us here at the tavern and at the show. But tavern here's behind me, so this is the first video intro that I've ever done. And those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, and all the other streaming platforms, jump over to YouTube if you want to and kind of see the video of this. But we have a special guest coming on tonight, you guys. He's coming all the way from Mexico. We're going to cover a lot of issues, but before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about what we got going on. We have a live show coming up on April 5th of 2025. The Cryptids the Corn Crew is going to be here in Arkansas. We're going to do a live show. We're going to be doing some other interviews. We're going to have a good time. We're going to be at Old Bart's at Diamond Bear. Great barbecue. Try the Drunken Cryptid cheeseburger. You're not gonna go wrong with that, I promise. Great service. Our girl Mariah's will be taking care of us through the whole event. We're gonna be there on April 5th from 5 to 9. 4 hours. 4 hours, you guys. You get a chance. 4 hours. Tickets are available for sale. They are in the show description below. So please, and they are selling fast. I can tell you that right now. We're also going to be at the Arkansas Paranormal Expo this October, and I'm going to be speaking at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree. Yeah. October 4th, I'm going to be there with the Cryptids and Corn guy. So I am going to be a speaker at that one. Make sure you guys come up and check it out if you're in that area. Cannot wait to meet you guys. I really cannot. We have t-shirts available for sale. We're going to have stickers available for sale. Come on out. Come hang out with us. Looking forward to meeting you. More meet and greets will be coming in the future. More expeditions coming in the future as well. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and all your social media. We'll keep you up to date. But let's talk about tonight's guest. Ryan has his own show called Codex of Curiosities. He runs the same style show that we run here, does interviews, encounters, everything. Great guy. Me and Rye hit it off right off the bat, and we jumped right into it. And we go all over the place. We're covering everything from Bigfoot to paranormal, shadow people, and there might even be a portal story involved in this one as well. So, you definitely want to sit back, grab your favorite beverage, enjoy the show. It's showtime.
I don't know how to describe them. And I stood up there and looked at him, and it's like,
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was a chupacabra. I was so excited.
they were referring to Bigfoot. There were voices in the darkness. The reason why this show is called Drunken.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. Of course, you all know me, Matthew, and across from me is Jacob. We actually have Jacob back in the house tonight.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, now for everybody out there, I am fighting a cold, so I am having some voice issues. That lovely cold is floating around here. I happen to catch it. It's been a week and a half. So Jacob's going to be helping me out a little bit tonight because we have a great guest coming on. We met through Facebook. I think everybody's meeting through Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it was Facebook and not Tinder, though, so that's the bonus.
It could have been MySpace back in the day.
MySpace was amazing back in the day. I don't care what anybody says. But no, we've got Ryan coming on, Ryan Voss, and he is the host of Codex and Curiosities, and which is another similar show, similar to what we do. And we were hitting it off, and we were trying to get dates and time down, and we finally got more locked in. So without further ado, Ryan, man, come on board. Welcome aboard to the Drunken Cryptids, and tell everybody about your show real quick and how they can find you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. My name is Brian Voss, and I'm the host of Bodega's Codex of Curiosities. And like you said, yeah, it's very similar to your show. I do everything from cryptids to UFOs to alien abductions, lost time, glitches in the matrix, and of course, lost and forgotten history, which is kind of seems to be a subject that I'm really interested in lately. Now, that's me. I can be found everywhere on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. That's where I'm at. You just look up Codega's Codex of Curiosities, and you'll find me there. And like you, Matthew, I am fairly new. My show has just hit its 1 year anniversary. I think yours did the same, and so congratulations to both of us for that. And yeah, that's the gist of my show. It's an interview-based one where I interview guests who've had amazing experiences, or researchers and people who have written books, and have them on, and we have a little discussion.
But it is correct. Congratulations, by the way, 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 year, the both of us, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then here we are talking. You mentioned because you I knew that. See, every time we have a plan, what we're going to talk about, it goes somewhere else. So, forgotten history. I have been digging into that myself. And we didn't talk about this off air, did we?
Yeah.
We did not talk about this off air at all. Yeah, forgotten history is something that I find really fascinating. Forgotten or lost or covered up.
Yeah, I'm going to go a lot with I don't think it's a lot of forgotten. I'm going to go with lost and covered up.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame
Yeah.
the Smithsonian for a lot of that stuff, and I don't mind throwing them under the bus because they're an easy target. But yeah, like prime example, we were just talking about the Cryptids of Corn guys, and they did an episode. They're talking about different states and weird cryptid stuff, and they brought up the Plum Bayou mounds that we have here, what are 20 minutes away. And before that, and they changed it. Before it was Plum Bayou, it was known as the Toltec Mounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the Toltec are from Mexico.
Yep.
Yes, they are.
And what was strange about that was the artifacts they were finding were related to the Toltec civilization, the Aztecs, the Mayans, everything down there in Central America. So then they changed it in 2022 to the Plum Bayou. And they tying it in with another species, another Native American tribe that no one's ever heard of before. No one.
Mm.
And Justin even said that he was digging in and trying. Look, we're giving Cryptids Corner a good plug out. Hey, live show on April 5th. Tickets are still available. But he was digging in. He said he couldn't find any history or about this other tribe. And I went there last year, or about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing they had changed the name, and I went out there and the sign said Plum Bayou. I was like, Plum Bayou? What the hell's Plum Bayou?
Wrong spot.
So I think there are a lot of things covered up.
I think that's a common thing, is where they cover up something, that they change the name so that you get pushed off into a different direction. And all it takes is literally one generation, and it'll all be forgotten. If you change something in a history books, it'll take one generation. And then the next generation will be learning out of these new history books, and that is how they are going to say, no, it's Plum Bayou. It's not these Toltec mounds or whatever they were called before. That, and also they have a great way of trying to copy the names of something else that's existing. So if you search for something, you get something that is more prominent. Let's say you're interested in some conspiracy about Walt Disney being frozen, okay? Because there's a theory that Walt Disney was frozen,
Yep.
and they're going to bring him back. Well, if you search Walt Disney frozen, what's going to happen? You're going to get the cartoon. You're not going to go into this. You're not going to go into what you want. So it's all this misdirection and trying to lead you away from the actual truth. And I really feel that is something that happens. And you're talking like the Smithsonian coming in and scooping up all these things, or these cover-ups as well. I was just talking with Freddie Silva today, and he was talking about, he goes very deep into that, about how our history is being covered up or misdirected. And, he was talking about the connection between the Mayans and the Egyptians and the giants as well, the red-haired giant. And he was showing a place, and he's like, I can't tell you where, but it's very close to where I live. And for those who don't know where I live in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. He was just here actually recently, and he went to a archaeological site where in the one pyramid they had a 8-foot red-haired giant buried there.
Wow. Yeah, probably the whole, especially with the area that you're in,
that's a lot of it, and I think further south as well is where they had the, they were trying to do the head extensions. You can tell I'm fighting a cold. So I'm trying, I'm talking about the elongated head skulls they were finding.
Yeah.
That was in Peru. That was
Peru.
yes,
Further south.
elongated skulls. The elongated skulls. Of course, I'm flipping my mind right now. But yes, and the issue with the elongated skulls was some of them were done by binding. Okay, and one thing you cannot change is you can't change the internal volume of a skull. You can change the shape of it, but no matter what, you're always going to keep it the exact same thing. But there is a lot of these skulls, and I'm trying to remember the name of these elongated skulls again. Were
It's for Jacob's on the
I'm about
Google
to
right
look it
now.
up.
But you're right though, and they did find some that were actually they had more mass, I believe, than what the average human would have.
correct. Yes, and the cranial cavity was much larger, where the spinal cord connected to the skull itself was in a different location as well. The ocular cavities, which is the eyes, were a little bit larger. I think they were around like a 23% larger or something along that line. And so you're seeing a different species. You're not seeing humans. You're seeing these different species, and they want to say, oh, it's just binding. Well, no. What was happening? Why the binding was happening is because imitation. There's a lot of people who try to copy more advanced civilizations or more where they want to be their gods. They try to mimic that. And so that's exactly what was happening. It was the Paracas skulls, and that's what it was called.
Yeah,
It's called
the
the Paracas
Paracas.
skulls.
Now, what's funny though, same thing was
Yeah.
taking place in Egypt,
Yes. Now,
and it was because it was oh my gosh, they blocked him out. I can picture him. He worshipped the sun. He was the first pharaoh to come in and to eliminate all the other gods, and they were only going to worship Ra, I believe, if I'm getting this misinformation. And he had an elongated skull. And
okay,
they ended
that
up,
is.
what's his
I
name?
believe that was Akhenaten. If I'm correct on that one.
And his wife is Nefer. Let's see here. What's funny is I'm typing in Neph, and right off the bat, Nephilim pops into my phone.
Was it Nefertiti? Was that Nefertiti?
I think it is. I'm pulling
Nefertiti.
up Nefertiti. I think it is. Let's see here. Thebes. Let's see here. Yes, this is how we are, folks. We do not do any editing.
Everything's on the fly. Everything's on the fly. Nothing wrong with that.
No. Okay, yeah. So it was the sun god Aten is who they were worshiping. It was the first time.
Okay.
So Nefertiti was the queen of Egypt and the wife of King Akhenaten, which you were right, who played a prominent role in changing Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion to one that was monotheistic, worshiping the sun god known as Aten, Aton. An elegant portrait bust of Nefertiti is in Berlin. Shocker. I wonder how that got there. Oh, I didn't say that out loud. And it is perhaps one of the most well-known ancient sculptures. But I do know that when he passed, and I want to say when she passed as well, and I think wasn't Nefertiti, their son, was supposed to be, see, now we're getting to the Egypt, though. But anyways, but if you look at even the pictures of her, has the elongated kind of skull. He has an elongated skull. And their son was, it doesn't talk about it. I want to say their son was like the most famous little mummy guy that we had.
Tut?
Yeah, wasn't her son Tut?
Tutankamen?
Yeah,
King Tut.
Yeah, King Tut was her son. And it was after their lineage is when they went through and wiped all of his images and everything off and changed everything because he was trying to push the one
See, I did not
God
know that.
rule.
I did not know that.
So, and what was funny is that he did have what they've been able to discover on him is he had an elongated skull. I want to say she had an elongated skull, and there's even something odd about Tut's skull.
Okay.
So,
I think
an ancient,
it was. 'Cause
now
he
ancient
did-
alien theorists are going to say that they were actually aliens, and this is what they were. And
But I think that was one of the reasons why he died so young, too.
I'm going to go with the Nephilim.
Well, to add credence to that statement that they're ancient aliens, but ancient aliens sometimes believe that they're fallen angels. Okay, so there is a theory that ancient aliens are fallen angels. Now, the Paracas skulls, when they did a mitochondrial DNA and they tracked the DNA, the mitochondrial is the woman's DNA. Okay, and when they tracked it, it came from the area of in near Syria and Lebanon, which, if you know, that's where Mount Hermon was. And for those who don't know Mount Hermon, that is the landing place of the alleged fallen angel.
And that's where they came down to start to consort with the daughters of man.
I know.
Yeah, and it was 33, and here's this lovely number, 33% of the angels rebelled and came down from the heaven to Mount. They landed on Mount Hermon. They kind of divvied up the who was going to be in charge, and like there were some lesser and greater ones, and then they made on. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that the Paracas skulls are fallen angels, but what I'm saying is they have DNA located to that area, and they were found in Peru. Okay, so they're from that area, and the theory is that they're not fallen angels, but they're actually part Nephilim. So the Paracas skulls allegedly are part Nephilim, and if you're able to track their DNA to that area, it lends credence to it that, well, there is a chance that is a possibility. So it's interesting. It's very, there's so much more. And again, this is information that, and a lot of people get turned away when you start talking about the Bible. And I'm like, well, quit thinking of the Bible as this religious book, and start thinking of it as a history book, and it will change your way of thinking on it as well.
Oh, I'm all about the Old Testament, and Jacob will tell you that. I don't get out much, and
He really doesn't.
And I kind of need to, because when I do go out, believe it or not, I do talk about Nephilim and Bigfoot and ghosts and shadow people, and I've been upsetting a lot of people lately with my argument that I have about the angels and everything and what we've been taught. You talk about the 33%. And, they said that one of the reasons was the fact that what took place was they were jealous that man had free will. So let me pause you real quick on the term free will. One, the war in heaven took place before man was created. Okay, this is all pre-Adam. Two, if you're going to rebel, that's a choice. That's free will. The angels have free will. I think the angels have free will. The demons have free will. They all have free will. And I think it's a lot of misconception. And I've upset some, people by stating that. And then, on that same case too, the Nephilim, I've come up with a new theory about shadow people. I think shadow people are the actual spirits. Those are the things that we call shadow people. I think these are the actual spirits of the Nephilim that were killed during the flood. Because remember, they can't go anywhere.
The disembodied spirits.
Yes.
And Matthew, I don't know if you want me to start talking about my stories, because this is going to tie, like my experiences are, this is a great segue. This is a fantastic segue into the experiences that I've had.
Before we jump into that, I'm going to continue my argument because I want to hear all about it here. Just one second. So, but the reason why I say that about the Nephilim being the shadow people is because 98% of shadow people encounters is the shadow person thing is looking at you until you look at it. When you look at it, it runs away.
Or disappears. Yeah.
Am I wrong? It's like the Watchers.
Technically, you're going to, because I've had a shadow person experience.
Yeah, I've had 3, so let's jump into yours.
Okay. But so is there anything else we want to go? So I agree. I think that's a great possibility. And for those who don't know, the Nephilim, when they're killed, their spirits roamed. They were always going to hunger. They're always going to thirst. And they, in my opinion, have become the demons that possess people. They want to possess people, but I'll get into that a little bit. So I'll go back to this experience. So I've had a plethora of experiences throughout my life. Some people have had some crazy experiences, and it seems like once you've had a certain type of experience, it kind of seems like you're touched to keep experiencing those kinds of things. And that goes along with me as well. So I'll do a quick little intro story to me, some of the crazy experiences.
Oh,
9
you don't
years
have to
old
be
for
quick
one of my
about
first-
it. By all means, go into detail. I want to hear all
Okay.
about it. This is
All right.
so.
all right.
This is it. So here's the cool part. So this is you getting a chance to share all of your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
I do. So, okay. So 9 years old. I'm in grade 4, up in Canada, originally from Canada. We have this thing called the fitness challenge with your school. And what it was you needed to perform these certain challenges within an X amount of time, or to be able to perform, like a certain amount of these challenges as well to see how far you can do it. And the goal was then you got these badges awarded to you at the end. Like you wanted, there was like the excellence, and then there was gold and silver and the bronze and whatever. So I was an athletic kid, and I wanted to, of course, you always want to get the best. So I wanted to get the excellence, and I was running this race. And as I was running this race, a couple of the kids were in front of me. There was let's say like 4 or 5 of them were in front of me, and I was about 10 feet behind them. And I'm like, I need to pick up the pace if I want to catch up with them and win this badge, because I'm not racing against them. I'm racing against a time, but they're setting a good pace, and I'm like, I better pick it up. So we're coming close to the finish line. And at that point I was like, I need to push it all. So I pushed beyond my means. And that is what I believe, because when I did that, I shot out of my head. Okay. And that sounds crazy, but my soul, my spirit, whatever you want to say, my astral body, it doesn't matter. I was above everybody about 15, maybe even 20 feet. I was floating above everybody running. I was seeing everybody running, and time kind of seemed to slow down a little bit, because that would only be, everybody seemed to be running, but they weren't running at a normal pace. Everything was a little bit slower, and I could see everybody running. And then that's when I saw myself. I looked back and I saw myself. And as soon as I looked back and saw myself, I had this realization that I'm not where I should be. Right. So as soon as that happened, it was like instant, boom, back into my body, running the race. Okay. And just like that, the race was over. And I remember this clear as day, that there was a hill at the end of the finish line. There's like this little hill, small hill, and that's where everybody else was sitting and waiting. And I went up to some of my friends, and I was like, "You're never going to believe what happened." And I start telling them. So 9-year-old without filters, telling them this crazy, weird experience. And at that age, that's when some kids will start to. It happens where you start getting judged. And so at that point, I was kind of pretty much dubbed the weird kid. And I realized that telling these weird stories or these weird experiences is not the best thing to do. So I was like, I'm never going to talk about this again. Well, of course, here I am. But that was my first really very strange experience. And that kind of kicked off a lifetime of high strangeness throughout my life, which is, I guess, is the way it was intended to be. So that was that first real strange experience. Okay. So let's fast forward.
Well, what's funny is that you
Go ahead,
mentioned that real quick, and I made a little note here. So you mentioned your shows talk about glitches in the Matrix, right? So let's talk about the Matrix just for a second. So are you a fan of the show at all, the movies?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I did enjoy them. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you see the Animatrix?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so do you remember the one part where the guy was the athlete, the sprinter, and he pushed himself and ran himself so hard he broke through the Matrix?
I actually don't. So I watched it. I even owned the DVD that had the Animatrix, and I watched it once when it first came out, and I don't remember. I've seen it, but I don't remember it. So he actually ran so fast he pushed himself.
Out of the Matrix. Yeah. And so when you were talking about that, and talking about how you kind of did an out of body thing, I was kind of wondering, because I do think there's a lot of self disclosure for a lot of the stuff that we do see in Hollywood and everything.
I agree.
Like my personal opinion, I think the movie Predator is actually based on Sasquatch, but of course, maybe that's what you were doing. Is that you wanted this so bad, you were pushing yourself so bad, to where you projected yourself out.
Yeah. I believe I believe I did something that snapped. It released a connection and it pushed myself out, and it was, and I didn't, and that was not a conscious thing. It was a subconscious thing, an unconscious thing. Sorry. And when I had the conscious realization that I'm out of my freaking body, that's when it was instantly back in. You know, I realized that I was in a place that I shouldn't be, and it bothers me to this day that I believe that at that point I kind of broke a barrier, you know, a rule. We'll say like a rule that we're kind of governed as people, we're kind of governed that we shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. But I broke that, and then I kind of disciplined myself after that because I was embarrassed. You know, I was being made fun of, and I was like, I'm never doing that. Like, you know, I'm not. Like, it was kind of like this. I believe I limited myself from ever experiencing that again because I put those limits back on and I reinstated them. That it was kind of like this rule of mine that I'm not going to do that again.
That is kind of cool, though. That happened to you, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, tell me about it. You know, but
I mean, how many people can say they did that? Man,
things.
I was sprinting so hard. Boom! I broke through the matrix.
I shot out of myself, and flying above myself and saw everything happening. Crazy. It was a very crazy experience. Now, and like I said, that was kind of like the precursor to many, many experiences. But I think jumping ahead, bypassing some of the other ones. Well, no, I'll tell you about one more. And this is kind of like a doppelganger that I swear that I saw of my grandma. And so what happened? My grandma was alive. So I was about 13 years old, and I was up in my parents' bedroom because that's where the computer was. Because we only had one computer in the whole household, and it was in the parents' bedroom. And we had this dormer that overlooked the yard and the barn where we had horses. And my job was I had to feed the horses. So that night, my dad called up to me and he's like, Ryan, have you fed the horses? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, you got to go feed them. And it was, I'm assuming it was around October or something like that. It just, that's what it felt like because it was crisp outside and it was already dark. It wasn't too late, maybe like 7, 8 o'clock, and it was already like pitch black. And so I left, I went outside, and one thing to note was that when I was on the computer, I was writing a journal with my, like, I don't know, who knows, like stuff that was private to me. So it was important that no one saw this. So I went outside, and I'm standing in the driveway looking up into the dormer. You can see clear as day because it's black outside and the light is on inside. So clear as day. And there's someone sitting at the computer desk. And I swear to God, it looked like my grandma. The same hair and everything, sitting at the computer desk, looking at the computer. And it's my grandma. But my grandma's not dead or anything like that. And so I'm upset, and I'm like, well, in your mind, you're making logical kind of rationalizations. You're like, well, it can't be my grandma, so it has to be maybe one of my sisters or my mom. So I ran down, fed the horses, came back, and when I do, I go down, I enter into the main floor, and I was like, hey, who was upstairs? You know, someone was upstairs on the computer. And they're like, no, none of us have been. We've all been sitting down here. They're watching some sort of award show, whether it be like the Grammys or I don't know, something like that. Not important. But they're like, no, we've all been here watching this. I said, no, someone was upstairs. I saw it. And they're like, no, we've been here. And my one sister's like, I went to the bathroom, which is just right here. Like, it's on the same floor. And she's like, but other than that, none of us have left this room. And I swore that it was my grandma. And but apparently it was something else, pretending to maybe have the look of my grandma or something like that. I don't know. And that was what we get, the doppelganger, you know, like that's what I was thinking. It looked like a doppelganger, something copied, maybe something I knew or I would recognize, so that I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of, or cause more alarm. So it kind of, and I've heard this before, where people experience something that will copy something that they know or they've seen or they're not afraid of, and present that to you so that you're not freaked out. But it looked like my grandma working on my computer.
Had anything else ever happened in the house?
Tons of stuff at that house.
See, so you're
So
only going to
this
give us
house-
one story of the house.
Well, the big one happened there. That one is the one that I said that changed my life. That's the one that really put me down this path. Now, like, my mom had multiple experiences as well. My dad had a very kind of like a, what is that when something appears out of nothing? There's a word for that. When it kind of like falls out
Manifest?
of the sky, kind of, but there's a specific word for that. When an object, I'm just going to look this up. When an object appears.
Hey, I'm racking my brain.
Nothing. Yeah, it starts with an A. What is it called?
Apparition?
No, it's
Well, Newton would be an apple.
Not important. But that has happened to my father, where something appeared. Like he was looking for this file folder. The file folder was completely gone, and he's like, "This file folder was here. It was 100% here." He checked the whole house, but he was in the living room, and we were helping him check. We couldn't find it, and by that time it was early in the morning. We have to get ready for school, and he said something. He caught movement out of his eye, and he went and looked where that was, and laying on the armchair was this yellow manila file folder, okay? And it's sitting on a blue big armchair, and he checked it. Like, this is not like, oh, maybe you did. No, he checked it. And so that was the only thing that happened to my dad. But my mom had seen a watery figure dressed in a uniform, standing near the bed. And then another occasion, she had seen another person standing in that same dormer where I saw that what I thought was my grandma. She saw someone standing in that dormer. She thought it was my father, but my father and I were gone earlier in the morning. We left at like 5 in the morning. I played hockey. We went to a hockey tournament. But she saw someone standing in that dormer. She was still in bed, and she was like, I could see someone someone standing there. And then this being came to the side of the bed to where my dad sleeps. She could feel it get into the bed, like sit down, lay down, and then roll over on top of her. And that was my mom's experience with that, And she, as much as you wanted to talk to it, she never really gave too much information. But other than that, like that was it. So that was her. My oldest sister, I know she had an experience. I can't remember. My younger sister, my middle sister, she, like me, when I said I kind of canceled me ever having an out-of-body experience before, when she was younger, she said she used to call herself the Queen of Lights because she'd see lights everywhere, floating around everywhere. But she got very scared one time and said, I never want to see this again. And from that point on, she actually never had any more experiences since then. But that is the house. And this house is not a old house. We built the house. So it could be something with the land. It could be something that was tied with tied to the land. It's along that line. Now,
Or generational.
we did something that, or generation. Yeah, that is a possibility.
Yeah, and the only reason I
Now-
bring up the generational is because, like, my first shadow person encounter, and I was a kid. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and we lived in
Okay.
an apartment. And this is like 1979, 1980. Not to give my age away, but there was no cell phones at the time. Obviously, none of that stuff. And when we saw this thing, me and my mom, my little sister was asleep in her crib, and my mom grabbed my little sister and we huddled around the TV until about 1 o'clock in the morning when my grandma showed up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm from Utah,
Wow.
so we're not obviously going to be driving around at 1 o'clock in the morning. But my grandma, as a young adult, I asked my grandma about that before she passed away. And she said, yeah, she just knew something was wrong because my mom was hearing her dead father calling her name. And my grandma said that she felt her dead husband's presence telling her that something was wrong with my mom. And so when my aunt came home from
Really?
working mid-shift is when she said, we need to go get Nanette. We need to go get her right now. And they went and they showed up, and that we moved out like 2 days later. Never went back to that apartment again. So there could be possibly something generational as well. And looking back, a lot of the stuff that happened with me and my paranormal stories, a lot of it does revolve around my mom, and to where I do think some generational stuff took place.
Okay, that is crazy. And then for your grandma to come by, like just to have that wherewithal to know to come by.
That was my first shadow person
That's
encounter.
interesting.
So that's why I brought the
Okay.
generational thing when you're talking about that. We lived in a house as well, later down with my stepdad, and my mom had something similar happen to her that happened to your mom.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. That is. It's really interesting. I find it really interesting and fascinating. Like, especially when you hear these other stories that are very similar, they have some similarities, and it just adds more credence or belief to you. It reinforces that, because a lot of times after these experiences, and I'm sure you do this as well, you question it. You question yourself. Did that really happen? Did I really see that? Maybe that was this. Maybe that was that. But when other people have experienced something similar to what you have, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm not as crazy as I thought I was. Maybe that literally did happen. Like that must have happened, because, like, I'll tell you, like, so many people I've talked to is they question their sanity, and I do too after some of these experiences. The last one that I had, I questioned my sanity, which was just recently. That was in August, but we'll get to that one eventually. But now the house, I feel that we amped things up. Is we brought in, my parents went away on vacation, and we brought in a Ouija board. Okay.
Oh,
and
no.
I don't know. Yes. We went to the local Toys R Us, because that's let's get the kids started into conjuring demons and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we went.
You could,
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know, you could go to Toys R Us, you could go to Walmart, and you could buy a Ouija board.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really could. Yeah.
And let's be honest, using a Ouija board is actually minor possession. Okay, you are being possessed. Your fingers, your hands, are being possessed. There is something moving them, and without your, because you're not doing it, it's these entities. So we used the Ouija board for a while. I would say maybe 6 months, something along that line. Okay, and we had it with us, and I don't know what actually happened to the Ouija board. It just disappeared. But after that is when things for me started to become more intense, and the fear that I had. I've always had a fear in this house, and so the fear that I had in this house was exemplified. It was like just immensely just grew and grew and grew. Now, what happened was I was about 19 years old, and I was hanging out with some friends, and I had come home, and that night I always say this because it just seems to tie in with everything, is that the Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis, were out in full force that night. So I remember they dropped me off. I wasn't drinking or nothing. I was completely sober, no problems there. And I remember watching the Aurora Borealis for a while, and it was beautiful. But I had to be up really early in the morning for work. So I go to bed, go upstairs, get ready for bed, lay down. And I had been playing video games that night. It was, I went to my friend's place because we rented a video game console, and because none of us could afford one, and you would just go to Blockbuster and rent one. So I was still kind of hyped up from that. And that's what you did. You rented a PlayStation or a Sega Genesis or a Nintendo or something like that. That is what you did. And so I tried to fall asleep, but my mind was going a mile a minute. Not my mind was going a mile a minute, but I was still kind of like, oh, it's still cool, and I could not fall asleep. So I was doing that clock watching thing where you roll over and you look at your clock, and you're like, wow, if I fall asleep now, I have 7 hours and 10 minutes of sleep. And then you look over, and it's like, well, 6 hours and 58 minutes of sleep, and you keep counting down. and I just couldn't fall asleep. So I was laying there, and I get this urge, and I don't want to say like a message or a voice in my head or something, but just something like, you need to look up. And it wasn't like something was telling me, it was just this urge to do this. So I roll onto my back and I looked up. Now, floating above me about 3 feet was this shadow being. Okay. So I could see the head. I can clearly see the head, the neck, the shoulders, the waist. And when it got to the waist, and the arms were by the side. Now, when it got to the waist, it went off into like this smoky kind of Hollywood-esque style, whitish smoke. But the thing itself was blacker than black. It was pure black. I don't know how to describe it because my room was dark because the lights were all off, but I could clearly see this thing floating above me. Now that is freaky onto itself, that you have like this black shadow floating above you. But the part here that, takes it over the edge was the eyes. Okay. The eyes were glowing red. Now, not like flashlight, but this glowing incandescent light. Okay. And it was like the pupils, not the whole eye, but just like the pupils, maybe like the cornea as well, was this red glow to it. And now, how long this thing stayed there, I don't know. I'd say maybe a fraction of a second, maybe a couple of seconds, enough that I could clearly see what was floating above me, and like that, poof, gone. Okay, and I laid there, and some people have told me, they're like, oh, that was sleep paralysis, but I'm like, no, because I rolled over, I changed position, I looked up, but at that point, when that creature, that thing was there, I was scared stiff. I was, they have your mechanisms when you're afraid. You have flight, fight, or freeze. And for me, it was freeze. I was like solid, couldn't move, and couldn't move out of fear. It wasn't like I was trying to move. It was just I couldn't move because I was scared stiff. And I lay there. I don't know for how long. And the next thing I know, I was waking up in the morning with my alarm clock going off at time to go, to get ready for work. And that was the experience that defined my life more or less, and kind of put me on the path of the paranormal, of the unexplained, of everything else.
Wow. I agree. No sleep paralysis. That was not, especially since you rolled over. I mean, you hit the nail on the head on that one. I agree with you 100%. The red eye thing is, with the shadow people that I've encountered, I've never seen eyes. It's just the figure itself. The red eye thing that's just creepy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There probably would have been a wet spot in my bed when I woke up. There's something floating above me with red eyes staring at me. Either I'm gonna scream or, hey, I'm a big tough guy, but still, I mean, you don't expect to have that. And people want to use the excuse, I think, for a lot of these encounters of sleep paralysis. I think we're being programmed to write off a lot of these things through certain medical conditions per se that are man-made, if that makes sense. We got to come up with a scientific explanation for it. So we're going to create an explanation. We're going to create a disease. We're going to create a symptom. Going back to covering up history and stuff. So back in the day, ADHD was called you're daydreaming, and I like the daydreamers, that's the daydreamers are the ones who write books, come up with podcasts, who do movies and create art. They're the daydreamers, that's creepy though. I can see how that event right there would define it. And of course the Ouija board, right? The Ouija board.
I know. Hey man, we're kids. I was when the Ouija board. I think I was I was 16 years old. I was 16, and now I'm like, that is the worst thing ever because you don't know who you're talking to on the other side. They can pretend to be your grandma. They're going to know everything about your grandma, but it's not your grandma.
Yep. No, it's because you're projecting it into the board. You're projecting it to the entity of what you want. and it's gonna give you what you want. And like I said before, that's not your dead grandma you're talking to. I promise.
Nope.
Your dead grandma's happily
Nope.
up there in heaven baking cookies for Jesus. That's what mine's doing. I know that right now. I
There we
guarantee you, she's
go.
double checking, make sure he's eating. All of my grandmas that passed on. I'm sure that's exactly what they're doing because my one grandma, she's probably making them pancakes. I mean, because that's why I love pancakes, is my grandma. But
Yeah.
and that's crazy though. And what's
Yeah,
funny is that
and-
we'll talk later, obviously but some of your encounters are similar to some of mine, and you're going to hear that here.
Okay.
You'll hear that later on. Just for the audience sake, is that we are recording an episode for Ryan's show immediately after we finish an episode for the Drunken Cryptids.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's why I'm holding back on some of this. I'm going,
Yeah.
wait, this is gold for his show, so let me hold on. So if y'all want to hear some more of this, by all means, make sure you tune into Codex of Curiosities.
to hear Matthew's side of these encounters, to have a connection with it. Now, a lot of people would say, "Oh, that was an overactive imagination," or "You just imagined that." Okay, if some people imagine something, is it so profound that it affects their life and they change exactly, that they take a path in life, so that they're not afraid of these things anymore? So myself was, I followed in, like, I went the path of the New Age. First of all, it's like I left the Catholic Church and went down the path of the New Age religion. Followed that for a while, and then from there, I sought out a shaman, and I studied under a shaman for about a year. And at the same time, then I was taken in by a medicine woman she taught me her ways as well, and I ended up becoming her firekeeper for her sweat lodge, and that was for about 3 years. And so it was, and the main purpose was so that I use the line from Hellboy all the time. The things that go bump in the night. Well, we bump back. It's kind of along that line. Was I didn't want to be afraid anymore, and I want to be like, no, you're not doing this time. You get out of here, kind of thing. So it was taking that path so that I could push back.
And I relate in a lot of ways. Like I said, I was about 4 or 5 years old with the first shadow person encounter. And then after that, there's another one we'll talk about. And then the haunted house that I was talking to you about with my mom. So I grew up with all this paranormal stuff. And then you add in the stories of Bigfoot and Sasquatch from, where I live. And I was a kid in the library poring over books of ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs and werewolves, and because there was no dog man back then, it was werewolf. It was werewolves.
Yeah.
We refer to them as, vampires. I mean, my parents, and I give my parents props. I really do. I really do give my mom and stepdad a lot of props, because I was bringing books home from the library that any other parent would look at and go, "WTF is wrong with you?" And the only time my parents made me turn around and take a book back to the library is I brought a book home on Satanism. And
okay, yep.
And now, granted, I was in junior high, and I found this book. I was like going, huh. And again, like you said before, I didn't want to be afraid. And I learned as a kid, the more knowledge you have, the more powerful you are. So if I know what the enemy is doing, I can beat you.
Yeah.
Now, my parents didn't fully understand that. So whenever I would go to the library, I would just pick up the book and sit there for about 30, 45 minutes to read where I left off at, put it back up, and learned a lot. And it was, what I was studying at that point in time let's see, I'm trying the best way to describe it. When you know somebody's full of crap.
Yep.
That's exactly everything on those books that I was pulling out. It's exactly what it felt like. And it completely took me into, it pushed me more, to be in, Christianity, but, in the Christianity, but like you as well, in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I took a Wiccan pagan journey as well, to do some self-searching and some spiritual work and everything, and was fascinated by that aspect. And obviously it came back, Christian. I was raised Mormon, and I haven't been Mormon for a very, 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 very long time. My parents are really big into it. My family is. I'm not. But doing, the podcast and doing the research and everything that we do, it does bring you closer to God. Like you mentioned the Bible earlier. I am all about it. And I mean, I will sit down and converse with anybody coming into the Old Testament stuff. Jacob can, tell you that.
We've had conversations.
Yeah, the fire pit conversations about the Old Testament's great.
Goes
From
one rabbit hole to another.
Yeah. That's the whole point of this, though.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
okay, so I can see how that it would, mold you into this, and so I'm going to assume that similar to me, you started the podcast to get more answers.
That is one of the main reasons. Exactly.
Same.
Exactly. It was. Yeah. It was. One of the other reasons was pretty much the same curiosity you had about going to the library to learn more and to hear more, and it was to hear these experiences firsthand. Because I used to listen to shows like The Confessionals or Sasquatch Chronicles, and I love listening to these stories. And I'm like, well, why can't people tell me? Why can't I be that person to interview the person and hear them firsthand? And let's cut out the middleman and go directly to these people. And so it was so I could hear the stories firsthand. So I could try to start to figure out some answers, to get some answers. And then I could build a place where these people could come together and they themselves figure out answers for themselves or find people who've had the same similar experiences. So it's kind of like putting this all together. And it's like, and people think like, oh, Bigfoot is one puzzle and UFOs are another puzzle and this is another puzzle. But no, I believe that they're all connected. All those pieces aren't a complete puzzle. It's all connected to be that one big puzzle. They all tie into one another. They're all connected.
Yes, I believe that there is a magical world within our world that we've forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Sasquatch is part of that. I think that UFOs are part of that. I mean, UFOs have been featured throughout history, including into the Bible, including into, featured in, Renaissance artwork, Renaissance religious artwork, I might add. And there's this whole world out there that it feels like we become blind to. Disney has a movie they call Onward. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
Yes.
And I will not forget when I got to watching, I was going, why does that feel like so much soft disclosure?
Mm-hmm.
A whole magical world who turned to technology and forgot their basic magical roots.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking elves and we're talking fairies, minotaur, centaurs. I mean, they got a dragon shows up at the end. And if you haven't watched the movie yet, folks, I highly recommend you watch it and look at it from an open mind view of maybe soft disclosure. And yeah, but that movie though pretty much has got me to where I'm like, okay, because and to be honest with you, I like the fact that these pieces of the puzzle that we are trying to put together exist, because I do not want to live in a world that is black and white. I want to live in a world where there's magic. I want to live in a world that has that mystery to it. That's what makes, I think, our world that much better. And I think that there are people, and I do think that they are working with other forces who are trying to keep that from us. You keep my favorite scene, honestly, one of my favorite scenes in the movie Onward is when the mage is teaching another young mage how to use magic to start fire. And then realizes nobody's watching because somebody figured out how to make a lighter.
Yep.
And they were fascinated with the lighter. And that's at the beginning. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty much what we're doing now. Hey, look at this movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Look, listen to this song. Listen, you know what I mean? Oh, look over here. And just, I don't know, pay attention to the crazy politics that are happening in the world right now. That's, I think the big distraction while they keep doing their magic. But also like you,
oh, yeah.
I wanted to have the accounts firsthand, but I also wanted to create a safe space for people, like, and you said you and I, like, you didn't want to be able to talk about it again. I want to be able to have these people who feel they're okay to come on and not be made fun of. Of course, there'll be people in the comments and stuff like that, whatever. But that's like, I think that's AI BS anyways, NPCs. Look, we're talking conspiracy.
NPCs, exactly.
Yeah, those are just NPCs making comments.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I've been waiting for you to get to one more thing. I know you got. There's one thing I'm waiting for you to hit on. I'm waiting for it.
There's one more thing. Yeah. So when you talked about the Nephilim and you said disembodied spirits, and you believe that's what shadow people are,
Yep.
but the disembodied spirits have to reside somewhere when they're not being in the physical form. Okay, and that is what I think I saw. Okay, so this story starts off not in some strange, amazing place like in pyramids here in Mexico or in some magical kingdom of sorts. No, this story starts off with me driving to a local grocery store. Okay, so it kind of loses its magic by me saying this, but this is the story. This is what happened. So I pull up to this grocery store and I park the car and I start having an issue. I start seeing extremely bright lights, okay, in front of me, manifest in front of me while I'm in my car. And I'm like, what is going on? Now, the best way I can explain it is if you stared at the sun for, a couple of minutes and then you looked around, that is exactly what it started at. Now, I have talked to some people about this, and some people are like, oh, that's what's called an ocular migraine. Okay. And you said earlier that they just want to label something. They want to put a name on something, even though they don't really have an explanation of what it is. But this is an ocular migraine. And an ocular migraine does not have any pain. It just means that you start seeing these brilliant colors. And that's what started. That's what happened. Now, if that was the end of the story, then yeah, that's an ocular migraine. I would say you're correct, but that's not. This evolved. It became more. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to get my bacon and I got to get my cheese from the store because they have the best prices in town. So I'm going to go in. So as I'm walking in, these colors form a rip. Okay. And by a rip, I would say like a triangle on its side. Okay. That's the best way I can say it. And I can see a point on one side, and this is on my, if I'm looking out, it's on my left-hand side. Okay. So on my left-hand side, it is a small point. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's opening up. It's forming this large triangle. And on the right-hand side, it's huge. Okay. Now the edges are these brilliant colors, but I'm not saying I know what plasma looks like, but if I've seen plasma in movies and whatnot, that's what this looked like. It looked like this rolling, the edges were all these rolling plasma, okay? Very extreme colors, like brilliant colors of like yellows, oranges, pinks, even like a light green as well. I wouldn't even say light green, but the yellow, oranges, and pinks is kind of like this color that it was. And it was very bright and very intense. And I'm standing in line, and this is taking up about 50% of my vision. Okay, so this is what I'm seeing. It's moving. It's not like this stagnant picture or something. And I'm sitting there, and that's when I can start to make out something through this. Okay, and when I say through this, I mean it's three-dimensional, and I can see past it. I can see in it. It's like a doorway. It's like a rip. It is like a portal. And what I see past this wasn't nice, okay? It wasn't like, oh, these beautiful colors are going to show me something beautiful and nice. What I saw was this desolate area. It was a bit of a warehouse. Like on my left-hand side, I could see this wall, okay? I could see a wall of a warehouse. And I'm assuming it's a warehouse. I'm just making an assumptions here. We've all been in warehouses. This is kind of what it looks like. A little bit of a roof above me as well. And further back, there's no roof, there's no wall or nothing. It's like it got blown out. Further away down this where I'm looking, now I can see these large fans. Okay, so I can see these large industrial-sized fans that are encased in like a metal shroud, and they have like a grill on the front of them. And now these fans are from left to right, or it doesn't matter. They're kind of like a wall almost, but not really. So that there's some of them were stacked too high, some of them were one. It was just a single unit. And in total, there was probably maybe close to a dozen of these fans, maybe a little bit more. and the blades, and I don't know why I picked up on this, we're all moving in a counterclockwise fashion. So they're all slowly just moving in this counterclockwise fashion. And the ground now is strewn with this rubble. Okay. And this rubble maybe was from the wall of this warehouse that is now blown out. And it's not like jagged rocks, but they're not smooth rocks as well. So it's just this rubble. You would see like a post-apocalyptic kind of like cityscape or something like that. That is what I saw all over the ground. And now the sky, I could also see the sky as well. The sky was this, it was all clouded over, and these clouds are moving by fast. Now, the colors that I saw in this area were all a brown or rust color. It was like this brownish rust color. Everything. Like the rocks that were closer to me, it was as if I was in this back of this warehouse where it was darker. Like there was no light coming in, so it was darker. But as you kind of moved out, it got a little bit lighter, so I could see a little bit clearer. And like the rocks were all these like this brownish kind of color. The sky was like this brownish, the clouds were these brownish color with like the clouds were a bit whitish because whatever type of light source that was above it was kind of shining through, and it didn't feel like a comfortable sun that we have, it was more of like this whitish kind of light, not a nice one, like an artificial light that was kind of coming through the clouds, but the clouds were full and they were just moving. And this is what I saw through this. And now it wasn't like I had a quick vision of this. It wasn't like I saw this and then it disappeared. No, it was sticking around. So much so that I was freaking out. And this is the thing, is wherever I looked, it wasn't that it was changing my vision through this portal or through this hole. It remained like a fixed point. So no matter where I looked, I still saw the same thing. And I was like, okay, I got to try some tests. So I closed my one eye and I still could see it. And I closed my other eye and I could still see it. The only thing I didn't do, which I should have, was close both eyes. But I was like trying to figure out what is going on here. And I'm trying to function as well in the life that I'm living right now. Like, okay, I ordered my bacon and my cheese and I go pay for it, but I'm having trouble seeing. Like I have to kind of look around because I can't see what I'm doing here as well, because it's about 50% of my vision is what I'm seeing through this. So I go and pay for my things and I get in my car and I'm like, I got to drive home. And I live in Mexico. The blocks here are much smaller. I was 3 blocks away, which would be maybe a little bit less than a regular size city block. So I drove home, parked the car. I'm still seeing this, and I'm gotten to the point now where I am freaking out. Like, what the hell is going on? And I go upstairs to my bedroom, and my wife is there, and I tell her, I'm like, I got a headache. I got to go lay down. So I go lay down, and that's when I prayed, and I'm like, please, Jesus Christ, take this away from me. I don't want to see this anymore. And with under a minute, it was gone. And that there was my experience of seeing something that was not of this world. And like I said, that a lot of people would be like, oh, that's an ocular migraine. No, but I saw clear as day. Like it wasn't like faded or like, I'm like, what is that? I think that this is, no, it's clear as day. I can clearly make out exactly everything I saw. So much so that I used AI to generate some pictures to try to replicate what I saw. And I have some pictures and I can share them with you later. I don't know if you want to post them on Facebook when you release this episode. So that people can see what I saw. And now, just before we go too far, now there was an episode I was listening to on Tony Merkel's show. Now, what it was Adam Davies, and he was talking about an incident where he saw a portal, and he saw through this portal as well. Now, the episode was, I have it written down here, is episode 710. It's called Trapped with Portal Predator. And at the 2-hour mark, 3 minutes and 51 seconds, he described seeing through a portal, and what he saw was like this desolate area, and he saw this gnarled, twisted tree as well. Okay, I mean, not as well. It's not like he saw that as well. He saw a tree as well, and it kind of like it was like a shock that I'm like, it was similar to the landscape that I had saw was kind of similar to what he was saying. It was like this post-apocalyptic, desolate world that he saw. That's what I saw as well. And I described this, like I've written this down. I've talked about this prior to me listening to this. So it wasn't like I was being influenced by his comments. So I want to make sure that that's abundantly clear that when I started talking about this and when I heard this episode about a month and a half ago, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, it was just like light bulbs went off, or this feeling of like oh my, like I don't want to say relief, but someone else has experienced something similar to what I had, and that was huge. That was huge. And what do I believe that was I believe that I saw through to where the Nephilim, the disembodied spirits, reside, that these demonic spirits reside, that once they are killed in their physical form, that they reside in this area that is void of life, that is void of anything. They wander these areas, hungering and like, with hunger that can't be satisfied, with thirst that can't be, quenched. And that is why they come through to our side and try to possess us, so that they can feel again, so they can satisfy these cravings, these longings, so that they can take part in the world that we live in, and to escape the hell zone that they are in.
Whoa. I'm about to shock you real quick. You didn't tell me this off air, have you?
No, I haven't told you at all. I said I have a portal story.
Yeah, you told me you had a portal story. No detail, no conversation, nothing. And Jacob is going to testify real quick.
Yeah, and the only thing that I said, just 1 second. So the only thing I said was, it was similar to this one episode. I said, I need to find this episode where they talk about this portal. That's all I said. And that was like 2 days ago.
Yep. So, one, I briefly remember the episode on Markle's show. Not the detail or anything. But once you started describing it, I looked right at Jacob, and I was like, I've dreamt this.
Yeah, he got his pen, wrote down. He goes, I had a dream like this.
I used to dream this in my late teens, early 20s.
Get out of here.
Same,
okay,
yeah.
And now,
once you said, and the color was,
even further.
Once you said the color, everything was this brown, kind of this rust color. I was like, right, Jake, going, yep. I was about to, I mouthed it with you.
Okay.
And I've talked to Jacob about these dreams before this episode years ago.
Shit. Now, to add to your dream, I don't know if you know who Paul Stobbs is. He wrote the book, The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. He's had when I told him this, he has had a similar dream with Hatman in this environment as well.
Yeah, see, one of my dreams was a carnival.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, it was a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It was kind of the area that I grew up in Utah, and it was same thing. Just but there was a carnival that had the lights and everything that a carnival would have.
Wow.
That was just one. Other ones to where I'm fighting things that doesn't make sense, shadow things with a katana of all things, and I don't know how to use a katana to save my life. I'm not gonna lie, I've never once used a sword at all, except for to pose with a picture going, oh, look how cool I am. But no, I'm fighting things with and I'm actually doing the moves, like the spins and the blocks and the slices and the dice and the stabbing, whatever it's technically called. Fighting these things in this desolate wasteland that is void of color. My skies the clouds were darker. But they didn't move as fast. The clouds were moving, but they weren't like moving like super fast. They were just kind of moving clouds, like a storm coming through, like storm clouds.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, that would be how fast, maybe a little bit faster than that, but that is very, very similar. Now, something that is also kind of, I don't know, have you ever watched the movie Constantine with,
Of course, I'm hoping they make a part 2.
Yeah.
yes. So when he
Goes
goes
to hell.
across to the other side to kind of like hell, where all these demons are, it's eerily very similar. And I just thought of this recently as well, and I'm like, I swear I've seen this before in a movie. And here we go with soft disclosure. Like, I really feel that that's the area that I saw into. I saw into this area where there, and like you said, you're fighting these shadow people. Where this is what I saw, and it was not it wasn't a dream. I wasn't doing any drugs. I wasn't doing anything, which is something that happens. A lot of people are like, "Oh, in a dream I saw this," or "In my mind's eye I saw this." No, and I'm not discrediting you, but I'm saying like this is what I saw. And
No,
if
you're seeing it in daylight
Yeah.
while you're awake at the grocery store is a lot more than my dreams. I'll tell you that right now. I wouldn't. I mean,
but piecing this together, like I feel that dreams, and I could spend hours and hours on dreams. So, but I'm not going to but I feel that dreams are so much more than just our body or our mind, like running over the shit that we did through the day. You know, there's that happens. Don't get me wrong. That happens. That we'll our mind will go and we'll have a little bit of that, but there's so much more to our dreams. So much.
oh, I agree. There's a lot to them. I mean, like I said, you know, a lot of these dreams that I had did take place in my late teens, going into about my mid, to late 20s. A lot of this stuff would happen, and then every once in a while, they would pop up. You know what I mean? Not nearly as
Yeah.
I mean, because back then it was almost like a nightly thing. I'd be transported to this other place. I mean, there's one dream I'm having a conversation almost with Jesus. Which was crazy. We could talk about the dreams for hours as well, but
Yeah.
and in these
Yeah,
places, I mean, it's just like I mean, I had one episode we were talking. No, I didn't talk about this dream. I don't think. I'll talk to you about it on your show, but anyways, no. So
yeah, like that. So when you're talking dreams, like I have been writing down my dreams religiously since 2011, 2012. I have a dream journal that I keep that is hundreds and hundreds of pages. And by chance, and it's always by chance, so I was going through it once, and I discovered that I had a dream. I've got a little time. I'll tell you about this dream because I think it's pretty cool. So this isn't the dream. This is real life. My wife had met this blind gentleman on the subway, and she would help him on and off because they had the same stuff. And she befriended him, and he said that he would go to Peru to hand out Braille computers and audio Bibles. Like he would go on a mission to do that. And he invited us to his church, and he's like, "Why don't you guys come and you can hear? I'm going to give a presentation about it." So, sure, we go to his church, and he gives this presentation, and I'm sitting at this large round table, and this lady sits down, and she starts commenting about the church, and she's like, "Oh, this is a beautiful church." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And she's like, "Well, is this your church?" I'm like, No, it's not." She's like, "Oh, well, which is your church?" I said, "Well, I don't go to church." And she's like, "What? You don't go to church?" I'm like, "Well, no, because I feel like I'm closer to God out in nature. Cut wood, there I am. Break a stone, you'll find me. I go into God's creations to be closer to Him." And she started getting really upset and having a heated argument about it. Fair enough, it happened. But I kept my cool. My wife was very impressed. She's like, "I can't believe you're so calm." And I'm like, it was no big deal. So fast forward a couple of weeks, and I'm going through my dream journal. So I'm looking for something else completely unrelated, and I stumble upon this dream. And I asked my wife, I said, "Hey, can I ask you a question? When did we go?" And she's like, "Oh, we went, end of February." And I'm like, no. Specifically, when did we go? So she gives me the exact date. And I said, "You're never going to believe it. 4 years to the day, I had a dream of this exact scenario where I sat down at a table and I was arguing with this woman about, not going to this church. And I said that, my church is outside, and I spend this, I'm closer to God outside. And just to have that dream, I'm sure there's a chance of that actually happening, like having that conversation, because it was a very realistic kind of event. But to have it 4 years to the actual day, to have that dream on when it was a little too coincidental for me.
That's crazy. No, so 4 years to the day?
To the day. Yeah, it was the exact day, but it was 4 years prior.
That is crazy.
Yeah, see, I think that there's so much power in our dreams. I really do. And I should do a dream journal. I really should. But I mean, I feel like if I was to do a dream journal, it would be like a novel, or a great miniseries on, HBO. It would have to be on HBO.
You might be able to publish a book.
But yeah, my thing is, and this is a recent event that happened to me here at the house. You're talking about earlier about trying to go to sleep, stuff like that. Well, I put on documentaries when I go to sleep. I spin up YouTube, well, not YouTube, but Netflix in my room and in the bedroom, and I'll find like Ancient Aliens or, Apocalypse Earth or something like that, a documentary to put on, just kind of lull me to sleep and everything. So I found this one about Moses, and I was like, oh, let me put this on. And fell asleep and woke up, and at the foot of my bed, so back up a little bit. So in my bedroom it's pretty cool. A couple episodes will play on Netflix, and they'll be like, "Are you still watching?" Right? And then I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and I'll see that it's on the screensaver in the TV. That means it stopped. It's Netflix stopped itself. But I'd fallen asleep, and I'd woken up, and the show was still on, so I hadn't been asleep very long, and I could have sworn that there was a shadow person crouched at the foot of my bed by my closet, and looked at it, and it startled me. I mean, I was sitting upright in bed. You know how that initial fear is. Whoa, that jumpiness, climbing out.
Yep.
And it was there and gone. And to where I can't say whether I saw something or whether I was coming out of, sleep. You know what I mean? That awake sleep stage. But every time I see that show as a recommended to continue watching on Netflix, I skip over it for some reason. It's it freaks me out now.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
I believe that in between time is actually a very, I don't want to say magical, it could be a very magical space. That's the in between. And I believe there is a lot of crossover at that point as well. It's very important, and that's why it's so difficult to remain in that one spot. But I believe that, I think you definitely did see something, and also with the dreams. Yeah, there's so much more to the dreams. Like I believe we can visit alternate realities, alternate timelines, jump in the future, forward and back, and also do, I'm sure that the TV show Quantum Leap. I believe that we also can do that, or at least I've done that in some of my dreams where I quantum leap into another person, and I know who I am still. Like I know I'm like this 40-year-old guy, but I'm in another body, in another family, and I have to complete a task in that
Yeah,
for that person.
that's happened to me. It's where it's me doing it. I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wake, I call it the wake me. The wake me has no clue. Like the katana thing, I've never used a sword in my entire life, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm like some badass with a ninja sword, because I'm not. And here I am with this katana, and I'll be honest with you, I was like Neo with the katana. It was awesome. I mean, there's like 5 of these shadow things, and I'm duking it out with them, holding my own. And there was somebody with me, some chick, in the dream, and we're just like.
Cool.
Yeah, just kicking shadow people's ass with katanas. This was before the movie The Matrix.
Kicking asses and taking names.
Yeah, it was great. And I remember waking up. I stationed on Fort Carson at the time, and I remember waking up going, "WTF was that?" I was like, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. We watched a lot of that, but no. Like, I know my Star Wars dreams. I've been watching Star Wars. I know that's just because of the day's events and everything.
Yeah, we know.
Man. Well, shoot. then we keep going, or do you want to wrap it up, or what you want to do?
I think we should wrap it up.
Part 2.
But definitely, you know, if I think we have a good rapport, you know, if in the future, I'd definitely love to come back because I do have a, you know, I gave you probably the two biggest ones, but I have some other runner-ups of things, including UFOs.
Sweet, because I have some plans for the future. We talked a little bit about off air. Before we start recording, I got some other plans that I want to do coming into the future, and I kind of want to tie you in a little bit and kind of pull you in as well. So we'll continue, more of it, and I definitely would love to have you back on for another episode. That's
right.
Just go ahead and
I'm game.
just put it on your calendar, Drunken Cryptids. You know,
penciled in.
Yeah, no. This is inked. We're not penciling anything over here. We're inking it in.
Oh, yeah. We permanent. Let's make it permanent. Yeah.
Sharpie.
It's why I feel bad. Brandon, shout out to you real quick over there, Tinfoil. I'm sorry. I'm still fighting it. I didn't want to do a bad interview for a show, and I am feeling better.
And Brandon's a great guy. Brandon is a fantastic.
He seems. I mean, I listened to his encounter on the confessionals, and so I reached out to have him on my show, and he goes, "Well, maybe down the road, but why don't you come on mine?" I went, "Bet, I'll come on your show. Why not?"
Yeah,
because I just want to hear more about this encounters.
He kind of is. This year, he's been shying away from doing actual interviews out on other people's because he's just too busy. That it's not like he's trying to be mean, or he's just like, I'm too busy. I need to concentrate on other things. And fair enough.
Trust me, I get it. I do. I do get, I try and come on other shows to help out as well. We talk about this off air stuff, we do, Ken, and you do get, life happens, I work a full-time job, single dad, and doing this, and I'm forever grateful to have Tommy. I mean, if I didn't have Tommy, the show would not be anywhere near where it would be at, because it'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd be throwing computers across my house. It's where Tommy's like, I got this. Don't worry. I'm like, thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it. So, well, sweet. Well, plug your show one more time. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, Codex of Curiosities, and you find me everywhere. Just type it into Google, and it'll come up. One of the million places that I'm at. I'm everywhere, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everything. And if you want to reach out to me, the best way is usually Facebook or email.
Awesome.
Oh,
and I'll post.
I guess I should give my
Yeah, give your email.
I guess I should give my email, which is codexofcuriosities@gmail.com. So there it is.
There you go. And I'll post links in the description for you guys as well to follow up on. Man, Rye, I had a blast. This is awesome. I can't wait for another part 2. I cannot wait.
Me neither.
All right, sweet. All right, brother man, I appreciate you coming on the show. And till next time, everybody, y'all stay safe out there.